Alright, today I'm going to give you a lot of tips on the Mini E-Revo. I think we've owned the Mini E-Revo for as long as it's been introduced from Traxxas. I know for sure that's been at least 8 years, it may be even more. But we bought this one brand new from Traxxas about a long time ago when they first were introduced. Anyways, over all those years we've learned a few tips and tricks, and I'm going to go over just all the stuff that we've learned. Okay, tip number 1. I got a lot of tips today. I'm going to list them out all here, right here on your left hand side of the screen first, because this is going to be a long video. And yeah, so here we go. Tip number 1. First of all, I always leave the truck sitting up on something like that so your tires don't sit compressed and become out of balance. The tires on this truck are extremely out of balance because of that. But you note, up off its wheels. Up off its wheels it was. Kids knocked it down. Everything is up off their wheels. Everything. Okay, tip number 2. Velcro the body. Get rid of those obnoxious body clips. This is so nice. Got Velcro right here on the sides of the battery covers. Velcro right here on the sides of the body. And holy cow, it's so much easier. You don't have to worry about body clips. This is hard to film and do this at the same time. I'm actually holding the phone with my neck right now. Yeah, that didn't work. Okay, well, you get the point. Velcro it on instead of body clips. So much nicer. Okay, tip number 3, stock gearing. Here's my notes on stock gearing. 2S 2850, 3S 2350. If you try to run 28 right here and a 50 right here on 3S, you will fry the ESC or the motor. But because we go bigger tires, talk about that in a second, I actually like to go 2355. We slow it down just a tiny bit because the bigger tires give you your speed back. Plus 2350, we found out, kind of heated things up a little bit. If you slow it down just a touch, running 2S lipo at 2355, the motor and the ESC, pretty much you can run unlimited without having any overheating issues. The other thing, we like RPM A-arms on the front, up and down. We like the RPM axle carriers, as can be noted right here. But you notice in the back we do not have RPM. It's because RPM does not make the extended rear A-arms. We like the 10mm extended rear A-arms. And even though those are not RPM, we don't tend to break them very often. But that extends your wheels back a little bit. This little guy is stock. As you can see, it pushes the rear wheels back a little bit. That tends to give us just a little bit more stability for the bigger tires. It's better running off-road, better on the track with the bigger tires anyways. And we tend to like that. If you keep the small tires on, keeping the stock rear A-arms is fine. And this one's got RPM A-arms in the rear because RPM makes stock A-arms for the rear that are not extended. So that's how we feel about RPM and upgrade stuff. We like it a lot. I do run RPM axle carriers on both the front and the back. Let's see. Oh, axle bearings. The bearings inside your axles wear out. When you start to get a lot of play on your truck, this is the wear items. You get wear on this. You get wear on your tie rods and push rods. If you have this kind of play, now this one's wiggling because the bearings in there are gone. It'll wiggle in all directions actually. It will only wiggle vertically though if you got axles. See the axle moving in there? That bearing is toast. If you have this kind of play, the tie rods are worn out. There is a big difference in the way your vehicle handles, and especially on the front end and the steering, if these things are worn out. On eBay, you can get an entire push rod set for like $8. On one of our other trucks, we put the aluminum tie rods on, which look pretty sweet and everything. But what we found out is those rod ends, they wear out just as fast as the stock plastic rod ends, and it costs just as much to replace the rod ends. So to me, it's easier just to keep the stock AR or stock push rod and tie rods and replace them as needed. Metal geared servos. Holy cow, that was like one of the best upgrades we did. We like the Savix. It is a 025 MG. That thing is waterproof. It is specifically made for the Mini E-Revo or other vehicles of that size. It's waterproof. It has more steering power than the stock. It's metal. We have had the metal geared servo in this truck for almost 5 years now. Never had it strip or had an issue. Stock servo with the plastic gears, we could break those pretty much on the first time we took it on a track. As a matter of fact, we stripped several of them multiple times in a row, which is why I have another video that talks about how to fix your servos for free. Oh, I do have a high-tech 85 MG, but you got to do a little finagling with the servo horn to make that fit. The 85 MG actually isn't waterproof, but we've never had any issues making it go swimming. It's been in there for a lot of years and keeps on running. Okay, next tip, the batteries. As you can see what I've got written down here, the Zippy 2240C series battery. This thing fits very snug. As a matter of fact, the reason I have this string on it is so when I'm done playing, I can grab on that string and pull it all out evenly instead of having to pull on the wire end. But you will note, those are bigger wires. You kind of have to cut the end of the battery tray off so the battery wires can come out. That thing does fit snug. Here, I'll cram it in there and show you. It pretty much takes up the entire battery tray. But these have been fantastic batteries for us. Yeah. The other ones that we've played with that also fit snug is the Zippy 3-cell 40C 1800s. Those also fit just as snug. But honestly, we run the 2 cells pretty much all the time. We don't ever run 3-cell anymore. It's just too much power. You strip things out. Yeah, and it's plenty fast with 2-cell. Shock spring rates. This truck, as you can see, has blue springs. Look at that nice Velcro body coming right off. This truck, as you can see, has green spring rates. Green is the stock spring rate for the truck. We've played with different spring rates for the trucks. We've also played with different oil weights for the shocks. We have found that the stock 40 weight oil is pretty much the best oil you can put in them for overall handling. When you have thicker oil and heavier springs, when your truck goes and hits a bump, instead of it like just rolling over the bump like that, it lifts the whole vehicle up and it makes it handle bad. So if you just keep the stock spring rates and stock oil weight, which is 40, when it rolls over bumps, just the tire moves instead of the whole truck, and it doesn't get bounced around and it handles much better. Also, keep these things filled with oil. They tend to drain themselves of oil rather quickly. This is what your truck suspension looks like when you don't keep oil in the shocks. This bounces. Bouncing is bad. This one has oil in the shocks. Oh yeah, dampening. Boom, solid, no bounce.
Not my batteries.
Sure did.
Yay! So I'll get my batteries on my icy car.
Yeah. She's excited to play with hers. The one thing that I've wanted to do to my little minis over all these years is buy some of the nice Energy aluminum piggyback shocks that have an oil reservoir and has more oil in it. I've just never bit the bullet and paid the money for the more expensive shocks to try. We like the Summit tires because the track that we drive on is kind of rocky. Summit tires lift it up a little bit, give it a little more clearance. Plus, when we go bashing off-road, the bigger tires, they do a lot better. Can you hear the air? Air is a good thing, but it's a bad thing if you're gonna go drive in water. If you're gonna drive in water, you need to take your tires off, look for those little holes. See the little hole right there? That's the foam of the tire. There's two on each tire. One on the top. Well, there really is no top and bottom. But there's the other one. There's two per tire. If you're gonna play in snow and water, you really should hot glue those holes closed so you don't get water inside your tires. As soon as you get water inside your tires, they become extremely out of balance. See my other video where I actually took the X-Max tires and was squishing a whole bunch of water out. The X-Max we bought from a guy who he sold it because it wasn't handling very good anymore. Like, you give it the gas and the tires were so out of round they would bounce off the ground as it drove, not even 5 miles an hour. So he didn't want it anymore and sold it for cheap. Well, what he didn't realize is the tires were full of water. So after lots of squishing and whatever, I got all the water out and the thing drives great now. One other trick. We used to break our front bulkheads all the time. The front bulkhead is right up in here, but if you look closely, I have taken screws and I've screwed the front skid plate to the center skid plate. Ever since we did that, there's no more body flex for this to be able to flex forward like that, and we've never broken a front bulkhead again since doing that. All of the trucks we have at least one screw there, keeping it together. That has been an excellent trick. Also, while we're looking under here, your stock steering, you got this part that sits here and rotates back and forth under there. Well, all there is a plastic rod that these steering parts are connected to, and there is just a plastic bushing in there that they just sits there and rubs on it. Well, that plastic bushing wears out. Pretty soon you got play going on inside your steering, and your steering becomes sloppy. Traxxas actually sells these sweet little bearings. I just dropped that one. They sell these little bearings to replace that bushing, and suddenly your steering becomes freaking buttery smooth. It's awesome. So before you even drive your brand new little mini E-Revo, pull that all apart, take these plastic pieces of junk out and put the bearings in there. It's so much better. So all of our trucks have the bearing. That bearing is part number 5114. 5114. You can eBay that and find them being sold in groups of 4 or 5 or whatever. That's what I did. When I bend this antenna down and keep it under the hood, I actually use a heat gun on the antenna right here and fold it over, and that way everything stays under the hood, nice, clean. You don't have the antenna poking up. We have not had any range issues by doing that. Works pretty good. The one thing that we struggle with the most is the rear differential. We stripped this thing out often. It's hidden up under here. I mean, it is nice that this whole back end, you can pull it off rather easily by taking off the bumper. There's 3 bolts there, plus 2 on the back right there. Pull all those out, the back bumper comes off. Take these 2 bolts out for the upper part of the shocks. Fold the shocks back, and there's 2 screws about right here, one there and one there. Unscrew those. Unscrew the first 2 bolts on the back of the skid plate, and the whole thing comes off. You can then get to your rear differential to replace part number 7079, replacing the rear differential. If you get that, instead of buying the entire differential off eBay, it's a lot cheaper. I have like 5 of these on stock because we strip it so much, but it's not a common knowledge that you can buy just the gear part of your differential. This thing costs about 10 bucks. If you try to buy the entire rear differential, off eBay, you'll be paying about double that. Speaking in terms of the differential, if you drive in water and you get the slipper clutch wet and then you don't dry that out, it will rust itself rock solid. One of the ways your truck will strip is if that slipper clutch is rock solid. It does not give any kind of free play or give in your drivetrain system, and you end up stripping your differential really fast. If you wash your truck off and spray it off, make sure you pull this cover off and also spray this area off really good. Then stick a little Allen head or something right there and hold that whole setup. Get your pliers or something on this side to hold that gear and adjust it. Make it to where you can turn the gear itself while holding or having this rod locked. Make sure you've got some slippage there. If it's rock solid, it's just not a good thing. Just one more tip. Working on your trucks, it goes a whole lot faster when you get your drill set up to take the screws in and out. If you don't have any of these direct driver kind of Allen wrenches, you can take the ones that come with the truck and just cut it off. That's what I did here with these 2 guys, and it works like a champ. Just one warning: be super careful putting screws back in. Even on the lowest torque setting on most drills, you will strip them out if you're not careful. Anyways, that's about all the tips I have for you for the Mini E-Revo. Like I said, I've had these things ever since Traxxas first came out with them. We've got 4 of them. All my kids drive them. We have races with them. It's really fun. Girls, are you on the same lap? There you go. That's 8 years worth of tips for the Mini E-Revo. I hope that helps. Yeah.